Hey, welcome to the Foster Fathers Podcast. I'm Chris.
I'm Kyle.
And this is a podcast all about foster care, adoption, and fatherhood.
We hope that you feel welcome. We hope that you feel that you belong. And we're glad that you're here to share this time with us.
Let's go. All right, well, hey, welcome to the Foster Fathers Podcast. My name's Chris.
I'm Kyle.
And we're spending this episode talking about your story, my friend. The wild one that it is.
Short.
Yeah, short,
not so
uncomplicated.
sweet.
Yeah.
Easy.
And so maybe, in summary,
Yeah.
when I met you, well, actually, when we met each other,
Yeah.
we had one kid between us. It
Right.
wasn't my biological son. And now between us, we have
Eight.
And so Kyle and
In
Jessica
2.5 years. We
Yeah.
went from 1 to 8 kids.
have just become great friends with ours. And, dude, 0 to 4.
Yeah.
Really, 4.5, 5.
Yeah.
Really, you were pretty in regular contact with
Yeah.
each
At
other.
one point we had 5
Yeah.
on the weekends.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, wait, we're
Yeah.
way ahead. Let's jump back to the beginning. Here we go.
Yeah,
You,
I mean,
you and Jessica, what?
I'll take it way back. So Jessica and I have been married for 6 years. We dated for 3 years before that.
Yeah.
We were friends for 2 years before that.
Wow.
So,
Just didn't have the game, you know?
yeah, dude, I had no game. Let's just be straightforward and honest.
I have no game, period. So it's not like I can give you lessons.
Jessica asked me, what would you do if I died? And it just scares me. Because I'd have no hope.
You just have-
I got lucky once. So let's just stick to that. But rewind actually before Jessica and I, and one of my best friends, shout out to Vladi.
Buddy.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
I beat him in Twister.
That's right, dude. That's right.
I'm going to
Halloween.
give no context to that.
Oh yeah, no. But one of my best friends, Vladi, was adopted from Bulgaria at the age of 6. His parents and my parents are still to this day great friends. Vladi's fortunately moved to Boise. I drug him along with me out here, and he is the reason why I even thought about doing adoption. And
Future guest?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Sick.
a must-have.
Love it.
Must have. Very fascinating dude too. So, but Jessica and I was something that was always on my mind,
Love it.
and we were, I think, probably early marriage. And Jessica was in grad school to become a nurse practitioner,
Yeah.
and so kids was off the table. There's no way that we were having biological kids or adopting kids. It was just too much all at once. And so, but some friends of ours, we mentioned, that we were interested in adoption, and that was where my heart was. And at that point, I think adoption was kind of a not a secondary option, but it was, we're eventually going to adopt, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't
that. That's kind of what we were.
It was not the primary.
Yeah.
It wasn't the primary option. But they talked about, and I'm not going to go too deep in this, but they talked about how the complications that can come around foreign adoptions and even some domestic adoptions, and how all that works. And they highlighted the need for foster care.
Sure.
And I think at first, and this is what we talked about last time, but foster care, I had known kids who were fostered in the foster care system, but it wasn't it was just, they're adopting this person, they're adopting this kid. It wasn't an awareness that I had. I knew the term foster care, but I didn't really know what it was. And it wasn't something that I had considered to fulfill my desire to adopt. And I had, so we kind of just put that on the back burner. Interesting idea, friends. Thank you for bringing that up. And
Thank you for your time. We'll talk to you later.
right.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, they just totally wrecked our lives for the better. But
If you're listening, you owe
it's
them
complicated.
dinner. You owe them dinner.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
They probably don't even know who they are.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You should probably tell them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shout
We
them
don't
out
really.
right now. Just
We
kidding.
don't
Just
have.
kidding.
We actually don't even have not a lot of contact. Just see them around town on occasion. Anyway, so we kind of put that on the back burner. It wasn't really an option anyways. Jessica was middle of school, and I lived next to this family for 6 years. I rented a house with a group of guys, varying group of guys, And there was this family that lived next door to us, and they had 2 kiddos. I knew the girl, which was 2 years old when I moved in. The boy was not even born yet. And 6 years later, as I moved out, the little girl was the flower girl in our wedding. They called me, at different times, called me Uncle Kyle. And I they felt like they were my kids. I mean, they were family.
Yeah.
And Jessica, there's a situation, I can't remember, we were saying goodbye or something, and we walked away, and Jessica said, I think I could foster. Because we realized that we loved these kids like they were our own, and we could find that love for another kid.
And my wife had a similar moment to that. We got to go on a mission trip to Guatemala.
Right.
Visited orphanage, and we stayed in this orphanage. So the way this place is laid out, there's an orphanage below, and then like the host home for the trips and the experiences that people come.
Right.
And we had spent all day at the orphanage, just loving on the kids. The dudes, they went off and they built a playground and a bunch of manual labor.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I remember finally seeing my wife, and she's been holding a baby the whole time. And at the end of the night, she says, "I think I could love a kid that is not my own."
Well.
And I remember that moment. That was like that's such a huge moment. I didn't even say it in my episode, but that was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Because similar to you, we had always talked about it.
Right.
It was always something that, especially, I'm in a ministry job.
Yeah.
And that's around a lot. And so, absolutely we will adopt one day. We'll have our kids and we'll grow our family, and then when it comes across, I was a youth pastor for a while, so I had kids stay at our house every once in a while when they just needed a place or some tough situation. Right. But that's a powerful moment when your wife has that.
We didn't get to touch on this. I mean, it's hard to ask all the right questions at the right time, but who in your relationship, who do you feel led the adoption pursuit, the foster care pursuit?
I mean, tangibly, I think I registered us and stuff. But then, I should say I got the packet in the mail and I handed that to my wife because she knows the details of my life.
Yeah.
I don't know. Tracy and I are really
Here's my social security number. Tracy?
Yeah. There are a few people in my world that I ask, well, how old am I? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
She knows.
Yeah.
For real though, I do think actually it's a powerful moment when that happens.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's not your question. I think Tracy and I are really pretty good at making a big decision together.
Yeah.
And so
yeah,
it may have been like, we're doing this. You're going to help us. You're going to run and you take the next thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Because I think that is one of those thoughts to be aware of, is for me, it was something that I always knew. Mm-hmm. I always had it in my mind. I think Jessica, had always been in her mind. I would say it was much more. She didn't have as close of a relationship to an adopted person as I did in Vladi, so it was much more tangible, much more real to me. Sure. But I don't think she faltered on it. Sure. Absolutely. But it is intriguing, and I mean, and that comes back to one of the things why we're here. You and I are here is because a lot of times in foster care and adoption, it is female driven, right? It seems to be that the more nurturing side that it's female driven, female directed. And here you and I are two dudes, two guys, passionate about this, I mean, I cry about it. Well, I used to cry. I'm a little bit, got a lot of stress.
Testosterone pills, I think.
That's not even true.
If we could get testosterone pill sponsorship, dude, let's go.
Little T pill.
He's got low T. That's why he cries.
Oh my gosh.
I'm keeping that.
Anyways, okay. So where were we at?
So the powerful moment when your wife says, I can do this.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're coming out from our friend's house, and she says, I think I could do foster care. I could love kids that are not biologically our own. In that statement, it's nuanced. It's hard to notice, but there is a distinction. There's a difference between adopting a kid and loving that kid. And
what do you mean?
In a foster care situation, touch back on, and I guess it's great that we went with your story first, but I mean, boom, you have a kid, with adoptions, a lot of times there's a lot of hoops to jump through beforehand. It's prepared, it's moving. There's a process to get there.
Sure.
In foster care, there definitely is a lot of hoops to jump through beforehand. Yeah. But it comes to a point where all of a sudden, you get before we got our second placement, we had 3 phone calls. 3 phone calls, and as navigating through the situations, the dynamics we were currently in, we ended up the third phone call was the placement that we got.
Yeah.
And so
ours was the second.
Right. And so
second call.
Right. And so I guess by that I mean it's much more dynamic. It's not hey, here's your kid and the goal of this is adoption.
Sure.
It's here's your kid, the goal of this is actually you're gonna lose this kid in an indefinite amount of time.
Yeah.
That's the goal. I mean, reunification is the goal. It's what it is what is best.
That's a whole episode we need to talk about. Because the number one thing, I could never do foster care, could never give them back.
Yeah.
But real quick before we keep going, what would you say in a short 2-sentence? What would you say to someone who says that?
I could never give a kid back. I mean, imagine what that kid's going through.
That kid needs it more than you need it.
Yeah, I mean,
the pain you feel.
Pull your head out of your and think about that kid instead. Quit thinking about yourself and think about that kid. I mean, that's a very abrupt way to say it, but it's true.
It's nuanced. It's not that straight, but fundamentally, in a way, it is.
Yeah. I mean, I realize we all have. I realize this alongside many people. We all have our own emotions and experiences that shape how we behave, the things that we say, how we respond. I'm very aware of that these days. But yeah, I would say you got to get out of your own head.
Let's jump in. You get your third phone call.
Yeah. So, actually, we did foster care training with Chris, Tracy. No kids at that point. We had no biological, and we still don't have any biological kids. Which
spiritually biological, maybe.
Here's the question that we get asked all the time. I've been asked this question. If I had $5 for every time I asked this question, I'd have a lot of money. I'd have like at least $10.
Nice.
Which is a lot of money these days. Because 4 kids would get expensive. But with people ask us all the time, hey, so can you guys have your own kids? And the answer to that question is we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know. Huh. We made a conscious decision that foster care and adoption was going to be our plan A.
Love it.
Oftentimes it's plan B, and I understand
motivation. That's ours.
Right. But for us it was, what if we flipped the script? What if we did it, that these kids, wasn't something came up and we decided to adopt. And also it was, this was our first, and our main goal.
I know you'll hate this, but that's so commendable. I mean, honestly, that's so cool.
Yeah. I mean,
anyways,
it's complicated.
Why'd you have to go make things so complicated?
Oh,
banger, dude.
So you are a millennial. I know. How do I know you're a millennial?
Dude, I think she's coming to the fair this year. We're going.
I'll do it, dude. I'll put 2 kids on my shoulders and go to that thing, dude.
I was a skater boy, dude. Anyways, so
we going through our foster care training. Jessica had just started a new job.
Yeah.
First job out of grad school.
On the other side of town.
Yeah. And I mean, this was a ramp in to a whole, so we said, okay, we're going to put everything on hold.
So you're certified, you're fully ready to roll, licensed.
Yep.
And then you decided
we weren't fully licensed yet, but we've gotten it
pretty close.
Yeah, right. We just a couple steps left and we put it on pause. And then when we came back to take everything up, the state had actually lost all of our information.
Nuh-uh.
They had lost.
Oh yeah, I remember this because we had a placement within a month and a half of getting licensed. We have kids.
Yep.
And you're like, how?
Yeah.
We're actually in our class. We were the first people, and I don't know how we just got fast tracked or something, dude.
Yeah, and so they lost all of our information, and I called the lady up and I remember I was driving down State Street. I remember it vividly, and I said, "Hey, I don't mean to be rude because I realize you guys have a lot going on, but if this was a business, I would get my money back." I was like, or you would find a way to make this transaction right. And but I said my goal is not to be a boss, but I said my goal is there are kids living in hotels. And you're telling me that we have to restart our whole process because you lost information. I said, we need to find a way to recover that information and to fast track the other components, to make this happen.
We'll get a whole other episode is working with the state.
Right.
With the state.
Okay, so here we go. Sorry, I'm a talker, so this could take forever. So let's just keep moving, so it doesn't take too long. We actually haven't even finalized our licensing, and our caseworker says, "Hey, we got a little girl living with her aunt and uncle. Would you take her?" And we weren't even licensed at this point. Well, that's
the need,
right,
dude.
Right. We weren't even licensed at this point. And she said,
get someone in trouble.
Are you interested? No, I mean, it was, once you're licensed, then she can come live with you.
Sure.
And so we started doing visits with this little girl. And then after 3 weeks of visits, we had finalized our
Talk to me about those visits. I mean, you have the unique perspective.
Right.
I have a child.
Right.
And then I take in kids.
Right.
And I could say, from my perspective, loving my daughter, my now adopted daughter, is no different. She might as well have been biological. What's those moments like when you're meeting a girl for the first time that you're called to love?
I mean, I remember meeting at the park right over there by the village. And
nobody knows where the village is.
Yeah, that's all right. Worldwide. You know. Do you know
where it is?
You know where it is?
Which we're going to after this.
And we're at the park and waiting for this girl, and we had a couple pictures, and I just remember feeling very, very anxious. And then it kind of got to this middle point where it felt like we were just babysitting this little girl, and then all of a sudden the aunt and uncle said, "Well, let's, she's already comfortable with you guys. Let's fast track this." And so we were going to do it for another week and a half, and they just handed her off to us.
You say babysit as in like it's kind of impersonal? Like
she came for just a few hours at a time. And then finally, she came to live with us full time. And, she was already in a daycare. We were able to keep her in the same daycare, all that stuff. So, some continuity on that. But yeah, I mean, honestly, just so much has happened that was July. That was July 13th was the first night she stayed with us. Wow. July 13th, 2022. And so a lot's happened in the last year and a half. Sometimes it's hard to remember those emotions, those feelings. Just be honest.
I know the story a little bit, and that's not even the kids you're adopting.
Yeah, no, that's not even it. That's not even so.
That's your first placement.
So we got this little girl. She comes in and she, and everybody says, okay, put the placement calls on hold, and we this little girl's having night terrors. Oof. every night, raking up, screaming at me. I walk into the room. There's this little almost 3-year-old girl just screaming bloody murder, like I'd done something to her. And I will tell you that was one of the most unnerving feelings.
Oh yeah.
I'm sitting here. You pick her up to try to rock her to console her, and she throws herself out of your arms, and she's staring at you. And I'm thinking, this girl is going to hate me. She's screaming, "No, Kyle, get away from me, Kyle!" And no 3-year-old should ever act like that. She has a consciousness that 3-year-olds don't generally have. Next morning, she wakes up. First thing she does, comes running into my arms, cuddles. It's just the most surreal. I was like, what? Do you not remember what happened last night?
And the answer probably is
no. And she had no idea. No idea. So we get about 6 weeks in, and she starts to sleep through the nights, and we just realize she's very fidgety, always on the move. And I look at Jessica, and I said, what if we asked for a second kid so that this little girl had somebody to play with?
Not the same, but that's how I have a second dog.
Yeah.
Not the same, but that's why we have 2 dogs.
Which brings me to another thing. I had a guy one time we have a couple rescue dogs.
foster them.
As if he knows exactly what it's like. I have a couple foster dogs. They have anxiety. So, homie, don't compare your dogs to my kids, dude. Please don't do that. Anyways, so she starts settling in. We ask for another kid between the ages of 2 and 4 so that she would have a play partner. And we get a phone call. And said, "Hey, we got one on the line. It's a 9-month-old." We go to we talk with the neighbors. "Oh yeah, we got an old, we from when our kids were little. Here's a car seat. We got this car seat." They call us up and say, "Oh, sorry, the 9-month-old is a no-go. Ended up staying with an aunt or something like that." So now we have all this. We start gearing up for all this stuff. Okay, within the span of a day and a half, we just stack it in the corner of our porch. And then we get another phone call, and it says, "Hey, we have a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 13-year-old. Can you guys take them?" And I said, "No, no. We live in a 2-bedroom house. Yeah. We can't take that." Yeah. They called me at the end of the day and said, "We cannot find a placement. Can you take these girls?" And so we take these girls. I think that was a Monday. We take these girls, and
I remember you took them to Walmart. You took them to everything.
Yeah, we took them to Walmart, dude. And then actually the Friday was the 13-year-old turned 14, and we roll into this. There's a little bit of a bougie neighborhood not far from where we live, and this is where the little girl wanted to go to. The 14-year-old wanted to go to dinner for her birthday, and we roll in with 3 Mexican girls. And I'm
spoiler, he's not Mexican.
I'm not. Yeah, for those of you not watching, I got a red beard. Yeah, I'm pretty white, and Jessica as well. And we roll in.
They drive Subarus.
And our first little girl. So we got our 3-year-old, and then we have these 6, 7, 14-year-old, and we just are the most misfit family. And we're rolling into this bougie little, barbecue shop, and everyone's just looking at us like, what the hell is going on here?
Blink if you need help, kid.
Yeah, it was awkward. But that Friday, so that was Friday. So earlier in that day, we got a phone call, and it said, "Hey, we have a 2-year-old boy. Can you guys take him?" And I said, "Sure, we would love to take him. However, we have these 3 kids. We're handing them off to a permanent placement on Saturday." Which was actually, that Saturday was our 5th anniversary. So I said that Saturday, I said, "Hey, but we can pick them up on Tuesday because it was Labor Day weekend. Yeah. So we could pick them up on Monday or Tuesday, whichever you guys need." And they said, "Well, Tuesday because we're closed Monday." Yeah. So they put that kiddo in temporary placement. We dropped the girls off on Saturday. And then I called Tuesday morning, and they said, "Oh no, your 2-year-old has the temporary placement has decided to keep him long term."
Jeez.
So that was,
I didn't know any of this.
That was 9:00 in the morning. I get a call by noon that says, "Hey, we have a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
Can you guys take them?" And I call up Jessica, and Jessica says, with all that's going on, it seems as if this is the real deal, this is exactly what's supposed to happen.
Sure.
So we get a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old. They were with a temporary. They came in on the Saturday with a temporary placement. 2 older siblings. The older siblings end up going to Grandpa's house. We take the younger 2. It's a cry fest for 2 months, dude. These kids, they cry at the drop of a hat for 2 straight months.
Which is exhausting.
It's exhausting. I mean, you haven't even given them an answer, and they just start throwing a fit about, which maybe this is a good time for my product placement. But this episode is brought to you by The Body Keeps the Score. Let me just say this. Chris isn't as much of a reader, but there's a lot, and there's more books to come, but I'm going to recommend some books. But this just talks about the psychology, the neurobiology, and the hormone physiology that goes on with kids and people who have experienced trauma. Huge insights. Yeah. It's a must read. It just gives you perspective. These kids experienced heightened senses due to their trauma, and they could not but whine. It was the only response that they had, and it's all in this book. Wow. All the mysteries of trauma.
All right, I should
revealed. All right. So we got these 2 kids.
See, we're not totally pulling this out of our butts. One of us has read a book.
One of us. We got another book to go. So anyway, we got these 3 kids. I fortunately worked for a company that gave me 6 weeks paid leave.
That's cool.
To be with these kids. At this point, with our first girl, so we have our first girl and then 2 more. Our first girl, we're doing weekly visits with her mom in person at that point in time. So every Friday we'd show up at the park, play. She would go over, play with her mom, and then we, the other 2 and I would play off and keep eyes on all the situation.
Sure.
We go in a little bit farther. So we got 3 kids. We had to get a bunk bed at this point in time. We had a bunk bed.
Big moment.
Huge moment. That's how you know. I mean, it felt like, okay, there's things that make you feel like a family, make you feel like a dad, and putting together your first bunk bed makes you feel like a dad.
You have the wild perspective, and it is a wild perspective.
Shout out to IKEA for the bunk bed.
Ooh, same. I have an IKEA. I think everybody has an IKEA bunk bed.
You're even cool.
You have no context of being a dad.
Right.
Obviously, your father.
Right.
But
right.
You're just a dad now.
Right.
Dealing with the most, arguably,
right.
You don't have the benefit of bonding with a baby.
Yeah.
And then now, when they're 2 and they give you crap, you have the context of, this is my baby.
Right.
You've walked into
not
only the 2-year-old phase, which is notably terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible twos.
Yeah.
But now complicated trauma.
Right.
And 2 family situations.
Right. So
what the heck are you doing?
So I took 6 weeks off to spend time with these kiddos. There was one point, so our first little girl, now 3 years old, and our second boy, 2 almost 3. Or not second, but our boy, 2 almost 3, and then our other girl was 3 almost 4. We go to this. She was potty trained, but when she came to live with us, she reverted. So she started pooping and peeing. So we're in diapers, we're in pull-ups. Mm-hmm. We're at the park. I'm at the park by myself. We got this bike that carries 3 kids on it. So I would just cruise everywhere. We're going to the zoo, we're going to the park, we're going to the pond, we're just always on the move. This was September, October. I'm at the park. I changed 4 diapers. 4 diapers in 45 minutes. 4 poopy diapers in 45 minutes, dude. Yeah. It was wild. Anyway, fast forward a little bit. We eventually go through, and this is where that paradoxical comment from your episode comes in my mind, where our first little girl, her mom starts getting healthy again, and she stayed consistently healthy, and she's keeping a job. She's staying off of the things that would keep her, from the state's permission. She's hitting all of her meetings, milestones, all of that stuff. And we're coming to this realization, dude, that this little girl that is going home. I mean, this is my firstborn, in a sense.
Yeah, wow.
And always will be. This little girl always will be my first little girl.
Oh, I don't want to do
that. And it came to a point where we had to give her back, to her mom. And I mean, that roller coaster of emotion of, you're cheering for her mom. You want her to do well. I believe in redemption. I believe in the hope for all humanity. I believe in people, and I want what's best for them.
Yeah.
But you realize that comes at the juxtaposition.
That literally means pain for you.
That means pain for me.
Yeah.
Right? The best thing for that little girl means the worst thing for me.
Wow.
This little girl who I had come to love and know, she would say, that's my Kyle. That's what she would say. She called me my Kyle. I was her Kyle. And I had to give her back. Yeah, I had to give her back. And I remember I was driving in our car. We had to buy, because at this point we knew we were getting the older 2.
You mean your collection of pickup trucks isn't gonna?
Yeah, so I had to turn in the pickup truck for shout out to Subaru, 8-passenger. And I remember driving in and listening to Matchbox 20 and bawling my eyes out that I was losing this little. I just bawling my eyes out
What's it like to know what emotion you're feeling? I don't know that.
I experienced 3 emotions at once. So to answer your question, it was hard to distinguish between them. I knew each one is like, oh, that's sadness. Oh, that's happiness. Oh, that's anxiety. Oh, that's, but that while all still simultaneously feeling fear that this could all come unraveling again. So at this point we knew, these kind of overlap, but, our two siblings had the older siblings that lived with grandpa, their mom. It was, they hadn't finalized it through court, but she was trending to the point where she was going to lose her parental rights. And at that point, their grandpa came to us and said, hey, I would appreciate if you guys could adopt all 4.
What's that moment like? Let's stick there for a minute.
It was
reality of you've experienced one case.
Let's just be honest. Can we be honest?
No.
A 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old that you would have living with you for 7 months. Yeah. A 3-year-old and a 4-year-old are much more dependent upon you than a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old are, right?
And they have so much
more baggage, trauma. They had actually been in foster care once before. A much more temporary placement than this situation. Well, but it's not as pretty. It's not as pretty. I mean, it's not as pretty. It's not as welcoming. It's not as inviting. It's not as, oh, hey, these are just cute, cuddly kids that just want to cuddle. I mean, they kind of rejected. They kind of rejected us, at first. Yeah. And so it was kind of this moment where, to be honest, it was hard to be. We can't turn away our younger 2. And we trust that we will come to love the older 2 the same way.
Bravo for you guys to keep the family together.
Right.
At the literal expense of your space, your reality.
Yeah, but it wasn't like to go back. I mean, we live in a 2-bedroom house. Yeah. This is not what we'd expected. Oh, yeah. We had not expected that. We had expected, okay, we're going to have, 1,
maybe we'll get 1
trickle into 2, and then when it comes time for the 3rd, then we'll make space, so after 3 or 4 years, then we'll make space. No, I mean, we're at that point, we were less than a year into this being thrust onto 4 kids, So you
guys live in the living room now, and just kidding.
Well, I mean, that is, all the while there's looming in the back of our minds, what if a placement? What if we get into a situation like yours where mom gets pregnant? What if one of our other foster kids that we've had comes back to live? They need a space, and because there's an previous association, how do we make space in a moment? Because like you said, I think the hardest thing about foster care is saying no. At least for certain people. Certain people, shout out to people who have the ability to say no, because I don't. Anyway, so we're now at a point. The older 2 came to live with us full time. We did a transition. We did weekends for about a month and a half. Transitioned to a point where we are now. So it was August. They came to live with us. Yep. Started school mid-August.
You're on the track to adoption.
And we are on the track to adoption. Mom's, we've switched over from a caseworker to a permanency worker.
I want to take it back to a moment in which I remember that we literally, I think this might have been one of the moments when we said, we need a freaking podcast.
What was it?
It was when the judge had decided to give Mom another chance.
Yeah.
She seems to be showing signs to getting back together.
Yeah.
And you're like, and you call me pissed. I remember you were like, what the hell is happening?
Yeah, she had been out of the picture for a long, long time. And then all of a sudden she showed back up in town wanting to see the kids in person.
Yep. And the judge had essentially facilitated it and said, okay, we need to make this happen.
We can't. She is the kid's mother. She has all rights to see her kids.
You had just done through some of the stuff. And then, dude, a couple days later, you call me.
Right.
And you go, this is real, right? We're talking real. She got arrested, dude. Yes.
I don't know if I was quite cheering it on, but
not cheering her
it
on.
It wasn't as excitement as much as it was clarity.
Yeah,
I think again, I mean, it goes back to that paradoxical, that ambiguity. The ambiguity is a feeling, you know, like that's the confusion. I mean, the confusion of feelings is the ambiguity that's experienced, and so the clarity of that moment of saying, okay, it's
and that was her last strike.
Yeah, that was her last. Absolutely.
And that was the judge was like, we did give her one last chance.
Yeah, and she was out. And so so here we are. So to go back, like you said, the kids have to live with you for 6 months. So the August.
In the middle of that.
We're in the middle of that. We just got placed with a lawyer, attorney who's gonna process all our paperwork.
Yeah, dude.
She thinks it'll be a couple months from now. So,
Dang,
but in our minds, even still, these are our kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
These are our kids. So
yeah, and so that's cool. Okay, just to wrap this thing up.
Yeah,
we're gonna.
I told you I was a big talker.
Yeah, it was a little bit longer than mine, in a good way.
I mean, I got a lot going on.
You do.
I got a lot going on.
I said the macro thing on mine. What's the macro kind of lesson? What's the culmination if you had to collapse your whole story right now into one little tidbit to walk away from? What would you say?
And resilience, perseverance. Yeah. You got to keep moving sometimes. You got to keep moving. You got to trust. You got to trust the future has more results than the present.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe your foster father or who knows who's listening, but in the moment it doesn't make sense.
Right.
And in the moment you say you need 4 kids, I'm looking at my 2-bedroom house.
Right.
And sure. The future holds the answer to the present, kind of.
Has more answers than today does.
Yeah, that's good, man.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good end of the episode. That's Kyle's story, a gnarly one at that. Good job, buddy.
Thanks, dude.
All right.
Thanks for being a part of the journey. We'll talk to you soon.